Hudya ka, Pilipinas! Sawadi Chaulok! Good day, learners! Welcome to Introduction to World Religions and Belief Systems class. I am Sir Greg, your Humanities and Social Sciences teacher, and let me guide you in this learning journey. Before we continue, I hope that you are in your most comfortable learning spot. Have a copy of your self-learning module, activity sheet, notebook, and pen for noting important details. I know that you are all excited, so let us begin.
Buddhism has been in existence for over 2,500 years and has never experienced any drastic or radical schisms in its evolution. As the disciples of Siddhartha Gautama spread his word and preached throughout various communities, there came a need for them to adapt to local culture, politics, and economic context. Emerging branches of Buddhism had become adjusted to the milieu of the place. They may differ on the doctrines of Buddhism, but the relationships with other subgroups are generally good. The basic tenets of both major schools of thought originate from Siddhartha Gautama, whose life has become a constant source of inspiration to others. Theravada Buddhism, or the Southern School of Buddhism, draws on the collected teachings of the oldest recorded text of Buddhist texts to become its central precept, the Pali Canon. This school claims to have preserved the original teachings of Siddhartha with pristine purity. Theravada Buddhism has gained considerable following in the West in the modern times. The sage Siddhartha Gautama may have been born between 563 BCE to 480 BCE into the Sakya tribe in Lumbini in present-day Nepal near the town of Kapilavastu, the capital city of Sakya state in the foothills of the Nepalese Himalayas. Born a Kshatriya, his father was Suddhodana, an aristocratic Hindu chieftain, and his mother was Mahamaya, a Korean princess. Buddha's family name was Gautama or Gotama. According to tradition, at the time when Siddhartha was conceived, Queen Mahamaya dreamt of a brilliant white light shining down to her from the sky. In the rays of the light was a magnificent white elephant with 6 large tusks. The elephant of light moved closer to the queen and melted into her body. 10 months later, Siddhartha was born. He emerged from the side of the queen, took 7 steps, and said, "I have been born to achieve awakening or Buddhi for the God of the world. This is my last birth." Mahamaya died shortly after giving birth to Siddhartha. The name Siddhartha means he who achieves his aim. He was reared by Mahamaya's younger sister, Mahapajapati, who became his father's second wife and the first woman to request ordination from the Buddha. The word Buddha means the awakened one or the enlightened one. At the time of his birth, the seer Asita predicted that the child was destined for either political or spiritual ascendancy. Since Suddhodana wanted Siddhartha to choose the life of the great king, he made sure that the young boy experienced the comfort of wealth and power. In effect, Suddhodana kept his child shielded from the harsh realities of human suffering outside the luxurious palace. He was given noble education and instruction in science, horsemanship, and archery. At the age of 16, his father arranged Siddhartha's marriage to a beautiful and refined young woman, Yasodhara, who later gave birth to their son Rahula. Siddhartha spent 29 years as a prince, and he began to develop a keen sense of discontent, as he felt constant emptiness despite living a life of luxury and ease. He sought answers to his questions by leaving his comfortable abode without the knowledge or approval of his family. He left his wife, child, and social status as he began to search for truth and liberation. Siddhartha's venture outside the comfort of the palace led him to encounter 4 suffering people that eventually transformed his outlook on life. The 4 encounters, or the 4 signs that occurred, made him realize the inevitability of misery in people's lives. First, meeting an old man made him accept that old age was an unavoidable circumstance no matter how unwelcome it is to a person. Second, a crippled man reflected upon him that illness is inescapable despite a person's relentless effort to avoid any diseases. Third, a decaying corpse made him understand that death was the inevitable end of all. Last, an ascetic monk impressed upon him the person's tranquility and the possibility of renouncing worldly pleasure in exchange for utter quietude. All these distressing manifestations convinced him that worldly and material possessions could not satisfy one's need. Taking his finest horse, he rode off into the night. He cut his hair and beard and sent them back with the horse through his charioteer. He renounced the members of his caste despite his father's resistance and resolved to become a mendicant, a beggar of alms. Also known as the Great Renunciation, he lived as an ascetic with homeless existence. He went to the forest and clothed himself in the yellow robes of a hermit. Siddhartha practiced asceticism in search of a way to escape suffering. Far withdrawn from his accustomed environment, he lived at the outskirts of society and associated himself with religious masters. As he became dissatisfied with their teachings, however, he went on his own way to subject himself to inexorable asceticism through self-mortification and fasting that reached a point of living on a single grain of rice per day. For the next 6 years, he practiced religious strictness, wore no clothes, and did not wash. Food and sleep became scarce. He became emancipated and feeble as a result of long periods of starvation, to the point that he almost died. 5 ascetics came to join him as his companions. All the life of deprivation was no better than a life of pleasure. As he began to take normal foods, his ascetic companions felt scandalized by his backsliding and deserted him. In the end, Siddhartha advocated the avoidance of two extremes, namely self-indulgence and self-denial. He taught the way towards middle path that was a life of self-discipline and introspection, but not self-flagellation. Seated beneath a pipal tree now known as the Bu or Bodhi tree near the Indian village, Siddhartha finally obtained his enlightenment after years of searching as he passed the 4 stages of meditative trance or jhana. Buddhist legend recounts his triumphs over the devil Mara, who personified evil forces that torment the minds of humankind, including greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, and doubt. Despite the many attempts of Mara to disturb Siddhartha's firm meditation, appearing as storms and rains, the devil was vanquished and faded like a bad dream. Mara failed to tempt Siddhartha with wealth and flesh. He could not break the calm determination of the seeker of the truth. After 49 days of meditation, Siddhartha emerged victorious and attained the state of absolute awakening. He became a Buddha or the awakened one, whose every action from there on would be motivated only by generosity, compassion, and wisdom. He had visions of the cycle of birth and death, and that was the fate of humankind. Siddhartha was 35 years old when he attained enlightenment. For 45 years, he traveled India from cities to towns and preached a message of hope and happiness while winning many new converts to his folds. At the age of 80, on a full moon, he died in Kushinagar. Theravada is a more conservative subdivision of Buddhism than Mahayana, thus it is closer to the fundamental teachings of Siddhartha. Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand are predominantly Theravada Buddhists. During the 3rd century BCE, the Indian Emperor Ashoka Maurya, who ruled between 269 BCE to 232 BCE, propagated Buddhism in Sri Lanka that remained relatively unchanged through time as a result of its rather peaceful history. Ashoka's son Mahinda and daughters Sanghamitra established Buddhism and then Ceylon. The subdivision of Theravada that existed during the early history of Sri Lanka can be traced from the 3 monasteries of Mahavihara, Abhayagiri Vihara, and the Jetavana. The early schools of Buddhism developed their own unique body of sacred texts. Of these, however, only the Pali Canon or the Tipitaka or Tripitaka of Theravada Buddhism survives. Preserved in the Pali language, the standard collection of scriptures of Theravada Buddhists is the first known, the most conservative, and the most complete extant early canon of Buddhist writings. In Pali language, the word pitaka translates as basket, referring to the receptacles where the palm leaf manuscripts were stored by the monks. The first basket or the Sutta Pitaka contains the conventional teaching delivered by Siddhartha on different occasions. Discourses of Siddhartha's disciples, such as those of Sariputta, Mugulyana, and Ananda, are also part of the Sutta Pitaka. It is divided into 5 collections, namely the Digha Nikaya or the collection of long discourses, the Majjhima Nikaya or the collection of middle-length discourses, Samyutta Nikaya or the collection of kindred sayings, Anguttara Nikaya or the collection of discourses arranged in accordance with number, and the Khuddaka Nikaya or smaller collection. The second basket or the Vinaya Pitaka contains the disciplinary code required of Buddhist monks are the bhikkhus and the nuns are the bhikkhunis. Various rules and regulations must be followed by the monastic community. It consists of 5 books, namely the Parahika Pali or major offenses, Pasitiya Pali or the minor offenses, Mahavaga Pali or the greater section, the Kulyavaga Pali or smaller section, and the Parivara Pali or the epitome of the Vinaya. The third basket or the Abhidhamma Pitaka is a work on moral psychology. The reflective philosophies of Siddhartha's teachings are contained in the Abhidhamma Pitaka that is strictly a Theravada collection. It is composed of 7 works, namely the Dhamma Sangani or the enumeration of phenomena, Vibhanga or the book of the treatises, Kathavatu or the point of controversy, Pugala Panati or the description of individuals, Dhatukata or the discussion with reference to elements, the Yamaka or the book of pairs, and the Pathana or the book of relations. Siddhartha never intended to start a new religion, especially so that his teachings are focused primarily on ethics and self-understanding as people work for their salvation and their own without needing the assistance of any supreme being. Here lies the main difference of Buddhism with other religions, and that it has no place for God or Savior, as salvation entirely lies within anyone's control. Siddhartha did not claim to be a savior, but a guide and teacher, as he pointed the way for others to follow and gain spiritual bliss in doing so. Another unique feature of Buddhism is the life that soul or Atman do not exist, as people live in a state of non-soulness or the Anatman or Anatta. Buddhism does not preach that humans have an eternal and indestructible soul. Nothing is permanent in this world, hence all things change and are impermanent. The mark of impermanence or anitya or anicca states that all conditioned things are transitory and passing. They all have beginning and end to their existence. Human existence, or what we actually call soul, is a composite of 5 mental or physical aggregates or khandhas. These aggregates include: first, the physical form or corporeality. Second, feelings or sensations. Third, understanding or perception. Fourth, will or mental formation. And lastly, consciousness. Hence, humans do not have a permanent, unchanging real soul that dwells within them. In effect, no soul is being reborn because there is no permanence in anything. The teachings of Siddhartha include discourses on the basic tenets of Buddhism, such as the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. Siddhartha's pursuit of enlightenment was due to the dissatisfaction he continually experienced despite living an opulent life in the palace. The Pali term for unsatisfactoriness or suffering is called dukkha. Dukkha manifested in misery, distress, agony, emptiness, or conflict outside the real world. Siddhartha began to witness the various manifestations of inescapable suffering from old age, illness, and eventual death. He analyzed the problem of dukkha that led him to arrive to the basic law of causation, or the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth, this identifies the origin of the problem, the dukkha. Suffering can be experienced throughout the different stages of a person's life, from birth, sickness, old age, to ultimate death. When one clings to one of the previously stated aggregates, this leads to suffering. When one unites with the unpleasant, it causes suffering. When one dissociates from the pleasant, it also results in suffering. The second noble truth, this explains the cause of suffering, or the samudaya, in craving or desire, or the tanha, in perpetual thirst of humans to consume things, experiences, or ideas. People are never satisfied, as they always want more or something else, want something new, or just want to discontinue something. People crave for existence or non-existence and seek sensual pleasures. People search for self-satisfaction from things they believe they can experience. However, since the nature of all these things is impermanent, people become attached to these things due to ignorance that leads to desire and eventual suffering. The third noble truth, this asserts that there is a cessation or nirodha to suffering and bondage by eliminating craving and desire. By dropping the bonds of craving, one gets to be released from the fundamental nature of reality. And the fourth noble truth, this directs an individual to the path, or the magga, leading to the termination of craving and desire, and to eventual cessation of pain. Likewise, one must avoid self-indulgence and self-torture, since both are pointless. This is the path towards moderation, or the middle way, aimed at ending suffering. Known as the Noble Eightfold Path, which is an entirely practical path, and each described as right or sama, and it's divided into three aspects, namely wisdom, morality, and meditation. For path of wisdom, this includes right view and right intention. For path of morality, this includes right speech and right action, and right livelihood. For path of meditation, it consists of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The mastery of the various truths and observance of the path would lead a person to break the bond that binds him or her to life and obtain release from the eternal cycle of death and rebirth, or samsara. This cycle is influenced by karma, which is the law of cause and effect. The law of dependent origination, or the Paticca Samuppada, is one of the most insightful teachings of Siddhartha. With everything built upon a set of relations, it follows that every effect has a definite cause and every cause has a definite effect. In short, nothing comes into being by mere accident, and actions do not happen in a random way. A short formula for this principle can be read in 4 lines, as when this is, this arising, that arises. When this is not, that is not, this ceasing, and that ceases. For the impermanence of things, nothing in this world is fixed and permanent, and everything is subject to change and alteration. Impermanence is an avoidable fact of human existence. Buddhism affirms 5 processes deemed uncontrollable by any individual: old age, sickness, dying, decay, and death. However, when one is released from samsara, a being escapes all these phenomena. That being has then reached a state called nirvana, wherein desire has been extinguished from oneself. No more unpleasant karma can be created, while greed, hatred, and delusion have all been obliterated. Everyone is capable of attaining nirvana in this life, just as the saints of Buddhism did in their lives. Those who have achieved nirvana are called arhat, or one who is worthy of honor. The Pali word Sangha literally means sharer, that refers to monks who share in the general fund of alms provided by a community. Translated as association or assembly, Sangha pertains to the Buddhist order and monastic community as founded by Siddhartha during the same year that he attained his enlightenment. Ordained Buddhist monks are called the bhikkhus, while nuns are called the bhikkhunis. During the time of Siddhartha, bhikkhus were dressed in rags, live at the foot of the tree, and beg for alms. They abstain from sexual pleasures, stealing, and killing. They constantly meditate and study the teachings of Siddhartha. In short, all bhikkhus must live a life of poverty and chastity and should strictly follow the codified rules as contained in the Vinaya Pitaka. Within the Vinaya Pitaka is a list of around 250 items of conduct that must be avoided or suffer the consequences of expulsion, suspension, or reproach depending on the severity of the offense. This particular list is recited regularly and confession is required once a transgression is committed. Members of the Sangha must ensure that Buddhist teachings are to be preserved and transmitted, whether orally or in written form. The so-called three jewels or the Triratna summarize the Buddhist faith. I take refuge in the Buddha, in the teaching, and in the Sangha. Attainment of salvation for any Buddhist is by way of one's own action without the assistance of any supreme or supernatural being. Followers are guided by the teachings of Siddhartha as lay people offer gifts to Siddhartha and the Sangha during the days of worship and observance. Stupas are commemorative monuments that contain sacred relics associated with Siddhartha himself and the venerable monks and nuns. These burial mounds predate Buddhism as ancient Indian kings and heroes were housed in stupas. With the death of Siddhartha, his body was cremated and his ashes were divided among the 8 followers and preserved in 8 stupas. None of these stupas remain fully intact as of today. With a million stupas located all over Asia, not all stupas houses Siddhartha's relics. Others contain artifacts of his revered disciples or his image, writings, or teachings. Stupas represent Siddhartha's body, speech, and mind. The design of the stupa depicts the path of enlightenment and became pilgrimage sites as they were covered in earth and decorated with Siddhartha's life. In Tibet, the stupa was transformed into a chorten, and elsewhere it became a pagoda in Southeast and East Asia. Most Buddhists aspire to visit many holy shrines as possible during their lifetime, for this is an admirable deed. Siddhartha himself pronounced 4 to which every Buddhist must give high regard. This include his birthplace, the place of his enlightenment, the place of his first sermon, and the place of his parinirvana. To anyone who takes pilgrimage of the sacred place and dies while traveling, this could bring about rebirth beyond death in a blissful world. In Sri Lanka, many pilgrims visit Adam's Park or Shripada, a tall conical mountain popular for the mark of the sacred footprint of Siddhartha for Buddhists and Adam for Christians. For several hours, pilgrims climb the mountain amidst arduous paths and thousands of steps. Most pilgrims undertake the journey every month of April. For Buddhist celebrations, the most important festival occurs every May on the night of the full moon, as Buddhist followers around the world commemorates the birth, enlightenment, and death of Siddhartha about 2,500 years ago. Known as Visakha or Vesak, it also known as Buddha Purnima or Buddha Day. Vesak refers to the lunar month that falls in May, and Vesak Day is the holiest day for all the Buddhists. Celebrated as immense festivity, Buddhists sent out thoughts of affectionate benevolence to the living and to the departed ones, and they also perform rituals at stupas. Most festivals celebrated in the Buddhist tradition are frequently happy occasions. Lay people proceed to the monasteries and offer food to the Sangha as they meditate and listen to the sermons. Most Buddhist celebrations are held to commemorate important events in the life of Siddhartha. Apart from Buddhist New Year, other celebrations include Magha Puja Day or Sangha Day, Asala Puja Day or Dhamma Day, Oposata or the Observance Day, Pavarana Day, Kathina Day, and Buddha Day or the Enlightenment Day. Magha Puja Day occurs during the full moon of the third lunar month. It commemorates the event where Siddhartha went to Rajgir to meet and ordain the 1,250 arhats in Vinuvana Monastery. Two of his chief disciples, namely Sariputta and Moggallana, were present during the assembly. Meanwhile, Asala Puja Day commemorates Siddhartha's first teaching or the turning of the wheel of the Dharma held near Benares. During this time, the monk Kondana reached the first level of enlightenment. In Buddhism, war is evil or akusala, and some scholars state that there is no rationalization in Siddhartha's teaching. However, there are instances wherein Buddhist monks engage themselves in open conflicts such as those that occurred in China and Japan, when Buddhists defend their nations, home, and family. This may not be necessarily wrong, as the religion's morality is based upon principles and not rules. It is not righteous to ignore a circumstance when innocent civilians are killed and slaughtered. Buddhists are taught not to yield to any form of evil power, whether originating from humans or supernatural beings. They are compelled to go to war when other people do not value the concept of brotherhood. They may defend and protect their country's sovereignty and have the duty to join the struggle for amity and liberty. Following Buddha's teachings, everyone is encouraged to avoid hostilities and instead find ways to resolve disagreements in a peaceful manner. Historically speaking, Siddhartha allowed women to participate in the Sangha, although there were some stipulations. Siddhartha's outlook is very different when one considers the status of women in ancient India as being viewed as inferior to men. Considered at times belonging to the lowest caste, women's principal role was to become faithful and devoted housewives subject to the whims of their husbands. In Buddhism, however, both sexes are seen as equally relevant in the society as they share equal responsibilities in their family duties. Within the Sangha, Siddhartha recognized the potential and value of the bhikkhunis who were also experts in teaching the Dharma. These include Dhamma Dina, Khema, and Upalavana. Siddhartha acknowledged that man is not always wise, as woman is also wise. In this lesson, you have learned that the fundamental teachings of Buddhism are closely tied to the life of Siddhartha Gautama, who was born between 563 BCE to 480 BCE in Lumbini in the foothills of the Nepalese Himalayas. The Theravada Sect is a school of Buddhism that draw its scriptural inspiration from the Pali Canon or the Tipitaka, Tripitaka, or the Three Baskets. The teachings of Siddhartha include discourses on the Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, Impermanence of Things, and Dependent Origination. The Sangha pertains to the Buddhist order and monastic community as founded by Siddhartha during the same year that he attained his enlightenment. Most Buddhism festivals are frequently happy celebrations. Most Buddhist festivals are held to commemorate important events in the life of Siddhartha Gautama. The subdivisions of Theravada that existed during the early history of Sri Lanka can be traced from the three monasteries of Mahavihara, Abhayagiri Vihara, and the Jetavana. Before we end, challenge yourself by answering the checkpoint activity. Read the questions carefully and choose the letter of the correct answer. Item number 1. It pertains to the Buddhist order and monastic community as founded by Siddhartha during the same year that he attained his enlightenment. A. Nirvana, B. Karma, C. Sangha, D. Samsara. Kindly write down your answer. Item number 2. It is where you can find Buddha's doctrinal discourses, short poems to long prose narratives about Siddhartha's previous lives. A. Abhidhamma Pitaka, B. Sutta Pitaka, C. Vinaya Pitaka. D. Yamaka Pitaka. Kindly write down your answer. Let us continue with item number 3. Which of the following identifies the origin of the problem? A. The first noble truth. B. The second noble truth. C. The third noble truth. D. The fourth noble truth. Kindly write down your answer. Item number 4. Which of the following eightfold path avoid evil thoughts and overcome them? Arouse good thoughts and maintain them. A. Right action. B. Right concentration. C. Right effort. D. Right mindfulness. Kindly write down your answer. And finally, item number 5. It is considered as the most important festival for the Buddhists, celebrated every May on the night of the full moon. A. Buddhi Day. B. Maga Puja. C. Opposata. D. Visakha. Kindly write down your answer. Here are the answers. Item number 1 C, item number 2 B, item number 3 A, item number 4 C, and item number 5 D. Good job, learners!
That concludes our lesson. I hope you have learned something and remembered all the important details of our lesson. If ever you forget, you may watch this video again until you master it. Please be reminded to accomplish all the remaining tasks in your self-learning module and in your activity sheet. Keep safe and see you in our next learning session.